Well, thank you, Michael. It's great to be back in front of CFR with in person. Yeah, we've been doing this kind of virtually for a while, and very much enjoy being back in person, talking about the most important issues I think facing the nation. I mean, when I chaired Homeland, I had ISIS and the Caliphate, and now the lead Republican on Foreign Affairs Committee, and it's really all about foreign nation adversary states. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Of course, I see Elliot Abrams, Venezuela. It's still an issue, and Iran's down there. But these threats are very real. But I want to kind of focus on the topic du jour. I was on the floor debating my bill on it's a war crimes bill to hold Putin accountable for his crimes against humanity. I kind of have to go back in time. I went to Poland with Chairman Meeks, very bipartisan delegation, and we went to the Ukraine border, and we saw just a flood of refugees coming in. And if you put that reel in sort of black and white imagery, it would almost look like something out of 1939. It was absolutely chilling to see what's happening over there. And the interesting thing politically is that we had people that are on the political spectrum, far left, far right, and everybody came back unified that we needed to help them. We need to help this. And I was told in my classified briefings, and I think that's been declassified, these plans that they had, we knew they were going to invade. We didn't know the extent of the invasion, but it was pretty clear that they told us about 4 days. It would take about 4 days. Now, here we are, it's about a month and a half. And the will of the Ukrainians, in my view, is far more superior than the will of the Russians on the ground, the Russian soldiers. And I think what we've seen with the images coming out of Bucha and Mariupol and the devastation are things that we thought we'd never see. Yeah, I didn't think I'd see my dad's war in my lifetime again. My dad was a bombardier, B-17, bombed the Nazis, part of Operation Overlord. And then to see, Russians bombing maternal hospitals and a pregnant woman coming out covered in blood. And sadly, she did not make it, nor did her child. But to bomb a building that had children in Russia, that our satellites could see it. It was that big. And yet they purposely went after that. And now we're getting reporting that there are mobile crematoriums to cover up their evidence, to burn the bodies because there's so many dead. And what we saw, Bucha, the mass graves and the executions, and they were buried, families, and they're just hands coming out of the ground, and the rapes of young girls in front of their families and the mothers in front of their children. And this is unacceptable behavior. In the world, if there are any neutral nations left, shame on them. We all need to stand up against this. And Americans, we did today in Congress in a very bipartisan fashion. My bill is going to be on the floor actually tonight, and I anticipate it will pass. This man is a war criminal. He thought he was going to be known as this great emperor getting to civilization. I'm the guy that restored the empire. He's going to be known as a war criminal and a man that committed all these crimes against humanity. And people like Zelensky have come out, amazingly inspirational. To see a Zelensky lead, he was actually advised to leave the country. Thank God he didn't do that. He stayed in Kyiv. And the moral clarity just the moral authority of his voice and what's happening. If I had any criticisms, I would say we should have armed them sooner. We should have done this before the invasion, not wait till after. We're trying to catch up to that. And I think these anti-aircraft, anti-missile systems like the S-300, it would be great if they were there prior. We got to get them in now. Zelensky, I had the Deputy Secretary of State today, and I quoted Zelensky. It was an NPR quote saying, if I just had these weapons before, we could have saved thousands of lives. And he's right. And then you turn to, you look at Chairman Xi meeting with Putin in the Beijing Olympics, talking about the invasion, by the way, and Xi's saying we can't just wait till after the Olympics are over. They have formed, and this is very much on our radar, sort of an unholy alliance now that's deeply troubling, particularly if you look at Taiwan and the situation. I was with the ambassador Taiwan, had breakfast, with her. They're facing what could be a similar situation. And in my judgment, we need to look at arming them. I in my position on foreign affairs, the chair and I sign off on all foreign military weapon sales. And so there's a laundry list of about 10 different weapon systems that we signed off on a year or two ago that have yet to get into Taiwan. And we can speak about this later, Michael. I have my own theories about what she is probably thinking. It may be easier to do more deceptive overthrow through the elections without the shot fired. But Congress has responded in a very bipartisan way. We talked about the sanctions. We appropriated the dollars. We talked about, the weapons. And that CODEL I told you about to Poland, even though we were all politically diverse, we just all came back unified. Now, a month ago or two, the question was, why do we care about Ukraine? Why is Ukraine important? We don't have to answer that question anymore. I think we all turned on the television and see the horrific images coming out of Ukraine. We cannot allow this to stand. I had my criticisms about Nord Stream 2. I don't think those sanctions should have been waived. Congress, and I led the effort to sanction Putin's pipeline into Europe. And for the life of me, I don't know why that's in our national interest to waive the sanctions. I think they're trying to appease Germany. But that didn't work out so well. And I think that gave a bad sign to Putin that, weakness invites aggression. You go back to Chamberlain, Hitler, you talk about Churchill and appeasement, and, Reagan, peace through strength. I think from Putin's eyes, it was always, I want to invade, just when is the right time to do it? And I think he saw certain things from Afghanistan to Nord Stream to New Start and thought, you know what, now is the time. And he didn't just go small. He went big. He went for everything. I think he miscalculated, quite honestly. The positives, I'm an eternal optimist, are that, NATO's never been more unified. They were on life support, and I think I would attribute that primarily to Putin and to Zelensky. But they are unified now. And the UN Security Council resolution of 141-5 was impressive. But it's the countries that abstained from the votes that worry me. Those are the countries primarily under China's influence, which we'll talk about. We have the Iran deal. We'll talk about that. And then lastly, Kim Jong-un is always up to mischief, firing off 2 ICBMs, this month. There's no shortage of hot spots in the world today. And I think, very timely discussion with CFR. There's a lot of, sort of ripe discussions that we can have tonight. And Michael and the CFR, thank you so much for having me.